Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Hiruta versus Ramirez fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So obviously, Hiruta is now branching out into Japan, outside of Japan and into America, and is really trying to tap into the American audience, in which she has said in multiple interviews leading up for this fight. It's a bit of a surprising fight, I suppose, against a Ramirez who, record, I'm going to say in a minute, isn't exactly the best, but arguably she's on the best run of form in her career, and I'll speak a bit more about it in a moment. But as fighters, Hiruta is 6-0 with, I believe, 3 KOs, and Ramirez is 15-10-4 with 3 KOs. This fight is for the WBO World Super Flyweight title. Ramirez's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Preston, and Hiruta's last fight was a win via TKO in round 6 versus Park. Hiruta is a southpaw, Ramirez is 38, and Hiruta is 28. Ramirez's losses have come versus Lescurat in 2022, Cordero in 2016, Ruiz in 2015, Leca in 2014, Munoz in 2013, Fujioka in 2013, Munoz again in 2012, Lopez in 2011, Moreno in 2011, and Juarez in 2010. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, obviously, like I said, this is for that WBO world title, so, no matter what, it's a big fight. It's Ramirez getting another opportunity to fight for a world championship, and you look at her age, obviously she's 38, she's been pro since 2009, which is incredible to see, to be completely honest. There's few fighters who are able to still fight for a world championship and have started professionally in 2009. You've got to think that is going on, that is 16 years ago now, which is crazy, but yeah, it's incredible to see that she's able to still fight for the title. Obviously, she's had many losses along the way. The run that she is on at the moment, though, like I mentioned, I think it's a good run. This is, I believe, her fourth world title fight. She had a break in between 2018 and 2022 where she had no fights. Like I say, I believe she's on a good run. No kind of really huge creditable wins. Anytime she has kind of taken any sort of step up, she has lost. But she's had a win versus Leca, which is a pretty decent win, to be honest. It's a fighter in Leca who has fought at a high level. I mean, fought Scarl Nicholson not too long ago, so that's probably the highlight of her career win wise. But like I say, look at the career that she's got in recent times, and you see a Lescurat loss, which is a split decision loss, which, to be fair, if you go and watch that fight, I don't think she deserved to win, but it wasn't a bad fight at all. She definitely had her successes in the fight. Lescurat definitely won just purely through her speed. To be honest, I think that just was way too much for Ramirez. She just couldn't handle the speed of hand in which Lescurat was constantly coming with. But you got to look at it and go, Lescurat has moved on to really good things since then, and it's been not a bad, it's not a bad split decision. That was probably her last toughest test, and Lescurat's gone on to much tougher opponents since then. So, that was a good run for her. Before that, she's had a draw in her last few fights. And she's, won a few lesser fights. She's coming from off a win in Australia, from what I believe. So, an away win, which is always nice to see, even if it's against a bit of a less opponent. But her last kind of bad loss was in 2016, and that was 9 years ago. So she's not really, like I say, been on that bad of a run. Before that, she was on a pretty much 2-11 type run, in which she had lost 9 fights and won 2 in that 11. So it was definitely not looking good, and she wasn't going to be getting kind of world championships opportunities off of that run. You'd like to hope not. But since then, like I say, the run in which she's been on, not saying it's really earns a world title shot, but it's Hiruta, like I say, trying to tap into this American market. You probably would want to give her a bit of a lesser opponent because of that, but it's also, when you look into the division, there is very few kind of clear standout fighters. I mean, you've got Lescurat, who is probably the clear standout fighter, Hiruta, who is creating quite big waves in Japan, to be honest, and is now, like I say, trying to breach out, trying to get into America. You got Ginny Fuchs as well, who is become interim champion after beating Adelaide Ruiz. That's a good fight there. Perhaps that could happen down the line. I would love to see that. Do I think that could happen next? I don't think so if Hiruta is able to beat Ramirez, but there's a few other champions. There's Macias, WBC champion. There's Garcia, IBF champion. So there's a few champions, but there's nobody kind of clear as a stand-up big fighter. And Hiruta definitely has the capabilities to do that. But in general, it's nice to see the division being given attention by 360 Promotions. 360 Promotions, I believe this could be one of their first world title fights in which they put on, and that's a big thing for any promotion. But they've been really putting fights together and really kind of progressing as a promotion. They're on UFC Fight Pass. They've got the likes of like a Callum Walsh who they're pushing as well, and there's a few other fighters. The main card, the main fight of this is Trinidad versus Plania. That's a good fight. Plania, has lost. Most recent times he's stepped up. His most recent loss was against Angelo Leo, which is, he got stopped badly, but that's aged well. He's had wins in the past again, which has been upset wins, so he definitely could cause an upset versus Trinidad, who he's been progressing himself, and he's not too far off that featherweight kind of world contention. And if he's able to beat Plania in good fashion, he could definitely be in the line for a world title shot in the featherweight division, in which again is a division which isn't got that much attention, got that many eyes on it at the moment. It's got some champions in Nick Ball and Ray Vargas, but there's not too many clear champions, and so that could have a good fight with Trinidad. If he could go on to fight Liao. Liao is meant to be fighting in Japan, but maybe the winner of that could go on to fight something like a Trinidad as a kind of challenger, as a mandatory challenger. So Trinidad's putting himself in a good position if he is able to beat somebody like a Plania. Akhmedov is also on this card. He's a very good fighter as well. He had, of course, that opportunity when he fought for a world title, for that IBO world title, when he fought Gongoro, which he did lose via knockout, I believe, in the last round. And so since then, he's gone away and he's been fighting on shows and building back, and he's, not against crazy level opposition on this card, but he is a tough fighter on his day, and he definitely could get himself back to world level, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. So there's some good fighters on this card. 360 Promotions with UFC Fight Pass getting involved, it's doing well, and I'm sure it's gonna, keep going, keep growing, and it's nice to see a new kind of big promoter to an extent coming through. And with having that platform, which I don't believe any other really boxing promotion has that platform to fight on with UFC Fight Pass. First of all, it's a big platform. Second of all, we're waiting to see what's happening with Dana White coming into the UFC. I mean, coming into boxing from the UFC. Is he going to get involved in a promotion like this? If he does, then he could grow it even more and really build up fighters like your Hirutas, like your Trinidads, like your Akhmedovs. He definitely could get involved that way and really kind of grow his own stable of fighters. We'll have to wait and see which way he wants to do it, but he seemingly is got things set up there waiting with a good boxing promotion at the palm of his hands, pretty much, if he wants to get involved, Dana White. So, for these fighters, winning these fights is very important, because good things could just be around the corner for them. Hiruta, though, like I say, arguably, you kind of have to look at her as the best fighter in the division. I feel like if she comes and gets a statement win versus Ramirez, which Lescurat couldn't do, and Lescurat is probably the best clear fighter in the division at the moment, you kind of look at it and go, you have to give it to Hiruta. And like I mentioned, she's been very keen to really tap into this American market. It's her first time fighting outside of Japan. That's going to come with, of course, the challenges itself. There's been, arguably though, no real rush to be able to get her in with the top world level contenders. I feel like possibly after this fight, she might kind of have to, because like I said, isn't too many fights available in these lower weight divisions, in this division, that are a high level. So we'll see what happens if she has to or not. But she's got a very good coach in Manny Robles. It's an amazing coach to have, somebody who's fought the likes of Andy Ruiz. I mean, not fought, coached the likes of Andy Ruiz, Oscar Valdez, Bahachuk. Just to name a few names in which he's worked with. And so he's an excellent coach to have on board, and I'm sure he's going to be really keen for her to be still continually having, perhaps progression fights to build up to other world title unifications. But if he can see that there's a market to tap into with another unification where she could get a belt perhaps quite easily, then he might just push her into that. So I feel like he's going to really help guide her career, and it's a great coach to have on. And obviously, like I've talked about Ramirez, she's hard to be able to deal with. I think she's never really been able to beat the top level opposition, but she's always been hard to deal with. She's fought in 8 countries. This is her ninth country she's fought in. She's willing to take every single test. It's hard to get opponents in the division, to be honest, and her stepping up and taking this test, you've got to give her credit for that. Like I say, her ninth country fighting in now, which is quite frankly incredible, to be completely honest. And obviously, like I say, since 2009, had that 2 years break in between, no, 4 years break in between 2018 and 2022, and it's come back and still arguably been on the best run of her career. And so, yeah, she's got a bit of, a little bit of momentum in her favour, and I'm sure she's not going to just come into this fight to fold over. Hiruta as a southpaw is going to offer challenges, but I think it's been improving with every fight, Hiruta. But is this a step perhaps too far? We'll have to wait and see. You always kind of see that with these fighters that are moved quickly. Perhaps you could arguably say that they're moved too quickly sometimes. Has Hiruta been moved too quickly? I'm not too sure. But Hiruta, as a fighter, as a individual fighter, she is typically a front foot fighter. I think she'll offer a lot of pressure a lot of the time. I think she'll start off with good clean boxing and uses her speed very well. She's got fast hands. She can often in the early rounds kind of jump in, jump out, just use the jab. She's a bit of a slow starter, but like I say, she's probably in the earlier rounds going to keep it to the mid-range, going to jump in and out unless she's going to be really eager to get a stoppage hit because it is with the American show and she's wanting to put on that show. We'll have to wait and see what mindset she comes into, but typically, like I say, she's got good pouncing attacks when she wants to have them in the early rounds. She's got good footwork as well. She's able to move around well and has most definitely got better footwork than that of Ramirez, who is very flat-footed. I think Hiruta can plant her feet well, but isn't particularly flat-footed. She can be light on her feet a lot of the time. She lets her hands go typically past the earlier rounds. She will have probably a couple rounds feeling you out and trying to work her range with a jab, which perhaps is a bit of a weak jab and perhaps isn't really doing too much. But a lot of the time, like I say, she's working it out. She's trying to find a range. Sometimes she struggles to find range a little bit, but for the most part, she is able to do it eventually. It's just going to be interesting to see how reactive she is against Ramirez because Ramirez is always going to respond to the punches in which Hiruta is going to throw. But is she just going to be jumping way too far out of range, Hiruta, or is she going to be able to find a range that works for her? I think she's got unexpected type power. I think quite often her shots can be arm punches, and perhaps they're not the nicest to see, and it's not putting her whole body into a punches. Perhaps she could have even more power and able to get even more fighters out of there if she did kind of turn into a punches a bit more. But for the most part, obviously the level of opposition haven't been crazily high as of yet, and I don't think Ramirez has that crazily high level of skill. But she has got that unexpected type power where she has been able to get stoppages, and like I say, is coming off a TKO win. She plants her feet well, like I say. I think she can control the centre well with good feints, in which often in the first few rounds she will offer nice feints. She gives her all. She does get dragged into a fight sometimes a bit into the later rounds, which is definitely going to play into Ramirez's favour. Often you see Ramirez or other fighters that are challengers coming in and they're just going to want to take you into the later rounds. They're going to want to drag you into a fight. They've got much less technical ability than that of the champion, but they're going to want to take you into a fight into the later rounds, and that's when mentally you're a bit weaker and mentally you're more likely to do so, and that's where they can lose fights, and you see that happen quite a lot with them type of fighters making it difficult. And so we'll have to wait and see. Hiruta, obviously, like I say, will give it a rule. She's shown that she has that toughness. If it does get into the later rounds, she probably would get dragged into a fight, but she has the toughness to be able to deal with that and to be able to get through that, which is a skill in which she has in her own right. She won't be bullied, and Ramirez can be kind of pushed about quite a bit. Hiruta doesn't look that strong again, but she does have that kind of mindset about her where she's just, if somebody comes on a bit too much, she will just push you off. And Ramirez has shown in the past, against Lescurat, she was kind of getting pushed about a little bit, and Lescurat is a much smaller fighter than that of Hiruta. And like I say, she's improving with every fight. If the way that things are going and the improvement she's making with the coach Manny Robles as well with her, this could be her best performance yet. This is definitely in line to be the best performance yet. She has that pressure on her. How's she going to be able to deal with it? We'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be also interesting to see, is Manny Robles going to accept her being that type of fighter who's going to wear a bow in her hair and try and be that kind of nice on the eye type fighter who's going to look so sweet and innocent, but then actually just going to be a killer, or she's just going to be trained to be a killer. We're going to have to wait and see, because it's been interesting to see in her fight sometimes and having this giant bow in her hair, but then getting into a war into the later rounds and getting bloodied up. It's just an interesting dynamic to see. Negatives about her, I think she can jump into attacks a bit, like I was mentioning. If she is going to be so reactive in the first few rounds versus Ramirez, first it might tire her out more by just jumping even far further out of range. Finding range can be sometimes difficult, and it might be even harder if she's doing that. And so we're going to have to wait and see. She does have little head movement, so she could, if she is just doing the same thing, I do feel like she does come forwards in straight lines quite a bit. She might get caught with shots if Ramirez is able to time her. With Ramirez, like I say, throwing shots, trying to just ruffle things up, she might be able to time her. Even though Ramirez's timing, it really isn't that good, she might just be able to land one, and it could hurt. She can be overly aggressive at times and forcing the fight a bit. Hiruta, she headhunts a bit at times. I think Ramirez arguably goes to the body better than that of Hiruta. She can arm punch, like I say, she can overreach at the same time. She has quite a low guard, and Ramirez has that much more tighter guard. Ramirez will throw from low and that will create openings, but for the most part, when she's being defensive, Ramirez has a higher guard than that of Hiruta. She finds a range, like I say, finding a range can be a problem. She's a bit of a slow starter, like I mentioned. She can get drawn into a fight again, like I mentioned. Using her combinations, I don't think, when she's training, when you see her on the pads, it looks like she's throwing really nice, clean combinations. They look really sharp, but actually using them, I haven't seen her use them that consistently as of yet, and she can be quite wide with her punches as well. Ramirez as a fighter though, she digs to the body, like I say, well, and I would say arguably that's her best attribute for her. She definitely does have good body work and she will use it. She's got a tight guard, like I said, defensively. When she's in that mindset, she will use her tight guard. She will often just kind of straight away go onto the back foot and accept that back foot position, but she'll try and go with a tight guard as well, and try and respond. Like I say, she always will try and respond. It's just going to be thrown from quite low, so it's going to be easier for her to go to the body. It means when she's throwing overhand, she's got more kind of movement, and if Hiruta is being reactive, then she could definitely just see it, that kind of a punch coming from quite far away. She's not just throwing singular shots. I think perhaps she could put together her combinations at times better than that of Hiruta. She wants to be in close. I feel like she manages to find a way in close no matter what, even if it takes multiple attempts. She doesn't get disheartened. She will just keep trying to get in close and keep trying to come forwards, even if she is on the back foot. She keeps coming back. Like I say, she can drag you into a fight. She's got a good chin as well. She can definitely take punches. Hiruta is probably going to test that, and it's going to be interesting to see how Ramirez is able to deal with the power that we've seen, or the knockout ability that we've seen so far from that of Hiruta. She can be forceful, and she finds a way in, and when she is finding a way in, it's like I say, scrappy and not always nice on the eye, but into the later rounds, if she finds a way in and Hiruta lets her in, then that's nice, and she's going to have her success there, Ramirez, at points. And she can be not tidy in her work, but it's not that type of style in which she's just always going to be clinging on. It's in close work, which is nice to see. It's not just, like I say, forcing a way in where she's just kind of hugging on, making the fight annoying. Perhaps she could have more success if she is doing that, but it's nice to see that she's not always, just holding on. It's a little bit more tidier in that aspect. Negatives about her, I think she will, like I say, willingly accept the back foot from the get-go, to be honest, and, when the judges are probably going to be in the favour of Hiruta anyway, if she is straight away going onto the back foot and not putting on the pressure straight away, then Hiruta is definitely going to have success, and at a mid-range, I think Ramirez is very poor. I think her timing is poor, her accuracy is very much not not good. She's not able to land shots at a mid-range very well at all. She can be out-thrown, she can be outpaced with shots. Her technical ability really isn't that high level. She doesn't really use her jab that well at all. She throws from far. She's flat-footed. I think she can be throwing lazy shots at the same time when she is at the mid-range, just lazily kind of winging in shots. She ducks her head down, which is again another thing which Herut is probably just going to be able to land more shots because Ramirez isn't even looking at the target when she's throwing sometimes. She can be pretty much always beaten to the punch, and against Lescurat, again, that was the reason why she lost. She was always beaten to the punch. At a mid-range, like I say, she's not going to land any shots. She throws from wide as well, which is again another reason she'll throw from low. Her speed, is much lesser than that of Hiruta. Hiruta is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Hiruta will win via TKO in round 8. I think it's going to be quite a comfortable performance if she lets it be. I think with Manny Robles as a coach, she's going to be well drilled and not get dragged into a fight quite so much, in which we have seen in previous fights where she's just been growing and improving. Like I say, I would like to see this be her best performance as of yet, and I think it has the capabilities to be her best performance yet. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see how the fight progresses. Ramirez has things in which she can do to perhaps slow Hiruta down with the bodywork and have a little bit of success at times, but I think Hiruta, the speed, even if it does get dragged into a war, Hiruta will be able to outland her consistently, and I think just be too much, even if it does get dragged into a war, and then I think Hiruta will win via that late stoppage. And then who she could go on to fight next? Like I say, her career, there is no real rush with it, so she could go and fight another Mexican or go and fight another, South American that's got a bit of a record, but perhaps is on a couple fight win streak. Or she could go in for a champion, and I wouldn't mind her going in for a champion. Maybe not like a Lescurat. I think a Lescurat. I think a Ginny Fuchs. Ginny Fuchs is, of course, like I mentioned, WBC interim champion. She might fight Macias next. If she doesn't fight Macias, Hiruta could fight Macias. If she does fight Macias Fuchs and wins, that could be a great fight down the line to be made, and Matchroom would get involved in that one, and that could be an excellent fight. Lescurat fight, I think, could be a little bit longer as well, but Lescurat also might be wanting contenders and might be struggling to yet fight. Irma Garcia, IBF champion, that could be a fight to be made. Perhaps there's not really too many talks about who she could fight, so that could be a fight to be made. Adelaida Ruiz, like I say, just lost versus Fuchs, but that could still be a fight. She's still got a good record and could be a progression fight for Hiruta, a step up fight for Hiruta. So we'll see. Like I say, there's multiple different options there. There's different routes in which you could go down. I'm just going to be interested personally to see. She could be built as a really big talent and could be made into a really big talent and draw, but it hasn't so far. Big draw in Japan, but outside in America could be made into a big draw. We'll have to wait and see. Like I mentioned, when you look at the lower weight divisions at the moment, they have took a real hit with the likes of an Estrada leaving. Just that one fighter alone has made all the lower divisions take quite a big hit, to be honest. When you look at the lower women's divisions, there's no big clear standout stars. Your Castavalle is the clear one. Then you kind of look at the lightweight division, and in between that there's a few fighters that are, looking good, and you perhaps look at like a Fundora as well, who's looking very good. She's been bought up well, but there's just not too many big names and not too many big fights yet. There is a chance something like an Hiruta could be made into a big fight. It's just the way that she has progressed. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you didn't, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.